Hey, Erica, thank you so much for joining us in our summit.
Thank you, Leslie, for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
This is our second summit
I
together.
was going to say, I think this is now an annual.
Yeah, we're going to make it a regular thing. But I love having you on because you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I feel like we have very similar values with our products that we're creating. And so we always love to have you on and talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think we're both dead set and heartfelt and all of that on giving kids, the optimal start in life and continuing that path of health, through their lives.
Yes. So for those of our listeners who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Yes. Again, thank you for having me. And hi, everybody. My name is Erica, and I am a serial founder. So I'm on my third company, but this is the company that I feel like everything else kind of led to me building and what I was really put here to do. So global is my baby. It's internationally inspired food for babies and toddlers. And our goal is to set kids up for better eating for the rest of their lives by introducing them to texture, flavor, spice, allergens, everything from the very beginning. Kids have a flavor window between 4 and 18 months, and that's when we can most easily influence the way they eat for the rest of their lives. So it's really important that during that time that we're giving them those first 100 foods you've probably heard about if you're a new mom, but more than that, right? Put those flavors together, put the foods in a meal. There's no reason why they can't have some spice or some herbs and things like that. And also introducing kids to allergens early so that we can hopefully mitigate their likelihood of having food allergies down the line, which is scientifically proven to help with. And then introducing to texture, because you don't want kids having texture aversions down the line. So many kids have all of these issues. And also we want to really avoid consumption of micro and nanoplastics. It's bad enough for us as adults. We're consuming about 5 grams a week, which is insane. And new reports about them being found, these plastics being found in our blood and our brain. And so why don't we at least try to eliminate, if we can't do it for ourselves, which I know I'm trying actively to do, let's at least try to eliminate it for those that are more vulnerable than we are and smaller than we are and still developing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And if you can have this influence on kids when they're babies, you can impact them for the rest of their lives, which is awesome.
100%.
So talk a little bit about that. Like, how does feeding in that early baby stage impact somebody for the rest of their life?
Yeah, I mean, we are their teachers, right? So, it's important that we also exhibit kind of the behaviors that we want them to model, or we model the behaviors that we want them to then exhibit. But yeah, as I mentioned, kids have a flavor window, and this is a scientific time in a child's life where when you're exposing them to different flavors, different textures, different spices, all of those things, that their palate starts to adjust to these tastes, these flavors. So don't be discouraged if you're giving a kid something one time and they don't like it. Like, give it to them 7, 8, 9 times. Maybe then they still won't like it, but their palate has now accepted or embraced that on the baby's tongue, right? So like when they get it the next time, let's say it's in a year, it's not a surprise. So I'm not saying they're going to like it necessarily in a year, but they're not going to be utterly appalled by it because they have had that experience or that exposure. So it is really important to kind of get at them with these different options, right from the get-go, because it does influence the way that they look at food going forward. Being able to just show them a lot of color, right? With our eyes, show them this color, they're going to be more prone to eating colorful food down the line, which obviously is mostly fruits and vegetables. They're all different colors. So, all of these kind of tips and tricks that matter at the beginning. You may not think it does, but it absolutely does, because there are actual parts of their development, that are influenced right away from the very beginning, and they grow, they grow with that exposure. So
I love it.
Bit of a job I did just explaining that, but
that makes a ton of sense. So yeah, just like getting that exposure. And it's funny, my entrepreneur brain, as soon as you said like 7, 8 times, I was thinking about even with new products, people have to see you, they say 7 to 10 times before they want to actually try your product. So it makes sense that a baby is not necessarily going to be super excited about a new flavor right away, but that doesn't mean they won't one day want it.
Yeah. And they also don't have preconceived notions about it yet, right? Like what is to stop them from enjoying that curry that you just gave them? Nothing. It tastes good, right? You like it. Their tongue is actually at that age more accepting of these flavors. So, and it's like it's actually it's more sensitive also the younger that they are. You know how our taste buds kind of dull down over time. So they get excited about these things. These are really powerful flavors in their mouth. And so they get excited about it and they accept it and they continue to hopefully have a more adventurous palate and ability or willingness to try new things.
And do you think, or is there evidence for like longer term in life, if somebody has that adventurous palate, they're more open to new foods, that that's going to benefit them later?
I mean, obviously, the more of a varied sort of diet that you eat, generally the healthier, because you're giving yourself bits and pieces of whole grains and protein and, you know, all of the good carbs and the dairy and all of that. So yeah, you would think theoretically that they would have a healthier diet because they'd be eating more types of food, which is always beneficial. But even with the allergy introduction, that's wildly important. I mean, we didn't have, I mean, our parents and grandparents didn't have food allergies, right? Like once we kind of sanitized baby food into sort of like one note mushy pouches, you know, we stopped without allergens that, you know, sterilized from texture and things like that, you know, kids develop food allergies, and that's kind of where it started. So if we can put those back in the way the rest of the world does, right? Outside the US, kids are 10 times less likely to have food allergies. It's because parents feed them generally just what it is that they're eating. And they're not buying, you know, kind of these simple purees with no flavor and no texture, no spice, or allergens. So getting that in early, that is science. I mean, I could share all the studies on that. But yeah, it is scientifically proven that the earlier that you introduce food allergens or allergens in general, that the less likelihood that you have to develop food allergies down the line. So it's an immunity play.
No, that's great. And it's funny because inflammation, which is kind of related to that, has come up a lot in terms of being able to digest properly, manage your weight. And so I can see how it's all connected.
Absolutely. There's a lot of connection between the microbiome, the gut, and food allergies, actually. There's a lot of new interesting studies coming out on that. The NIH has been doing a lot of work with it. It's actually fascinating. So the more exposure, the better.
Yes. So on those lines, can you give us some tips and tricks for feeding your kids? Like what are some easy things someone can do to lay that good foundation?
Yeah. Excellent question. So I think I said at the very beginning, like we should model that the behavior that we want to see in our children. So, you know, eating in front of them, eating as a family, not just feeding them by themselves, but letting them see the way you consume. And so like my kids are 8 and 5 now. Every single night I show them my plate and I say, look at the purple, look at the red, look at the orange, look at the rainbow I'm eating. And it does encourage them to some degree. I mean, I have one picky eater, one not picky eater, and it's because I fed them very differently. And it's part of the reason I started my company. But yeah, exhibit those things that you want them to see and hopefully exhibit either now or down the line. Also, don't give up, right? Like I said, you know, try it 7, 8, 9, 10 times. You know, if they don't like it, fine, stop. But reintroduce it again down the line, especially if it's a super nutritious food. I'm not saying reintroduce ice cream down the line. Probably they like that from the beginning anyway. But yeah, don't be discouraged and just continue trying it because again, with that early exposure, they have at least now accepted that that flavor exists and won't be surprised by it, you know, later. So try it again, give it some time and try it again. And, you know, those would be, I mean, those are two, I think, really strong pieces of advice. They do say that, you know, just eating all together is extremely important for good eating habits, not to eat while watching TV or a family movie or anything. But these are things that most of us know as adults, but it's important to exhibit that, you know, for your kids as well. And don't be afraid of flavor, texture, spice. Like my pediatrician told me from day one with my son, I grew up in a family that we ate everything. We're an Indian family and we were given spice and we were given the curry and we were given the butter chicken and we did like she said, I didn't know life differently. Why wouldn't I eat that? That's what I was told to eat and it tasted good. And I didn't do it with my son because for whatever like reason that was just inherent in me is like you give your kids basic purees and that's it. And I feel like I hurt my kids' chances of ever growing into that, person who really enjoys the love and has a love of food because of that. He said the same meal every night for dinner for like the last 5 years. And so I didn't want to do that again with my kid, with my second, and I didn't. And she's a wonderful eater. So I think even anecdotally in my family, not being afraid to kind of go against the grain or, doing something that is a little bit different maybe than your friends, like that's okay. It's better. It's ultimately better in the long run. And there's no reason why kids can't eat the way we eat. Baby food doesn't need to be dumbed down. Babies aren't dumb. They can eat what we eat, and they should be given that chance.
I love that. And it's funny when you mentioned like not reintroducing ice cream. I have one picky eater, and he's always like, Mom, I finished my dessert. And I'm like,
how about you say that with the chicken or the salad or the
exactly. I'm like, if you're gonna finish your kale, then I was excited.
I will celebrate, right?
Yes, it's so funny. But I completely resonate with everything that you said. And it's easy to get overwhelmed, or think like if you can't do it perfectly that you shouldn't even try or whatever. But I think what I'm hearing you say is just keep trying. Just try, be a good role model when you can. Yes. Just keep up the effort and it will pay off.
Yes, you just recapped it beautifully.
I love that. I love that because we don't want to stress people out. That's not the goal of the summit. No. So the next question I was going to ask you is about baby food. So if someone is looking for baby food, they want that convenience, everything kind of all in one, what do you recommend people look for?
Well, I'm biased because I created a whole company on what I believe and what pediatricians believe parents should look for. So, obviously at this point in time, like having healthy, organic baby food, I think is table stakes. Like always look, for, look at the ingredient list, make sure you can pronounce the names, look and see if it's a natural looking list of ingredients that you recognize first and foremost. But then after that, like, don't get stuck on just the fruit purees and the fruit pouches, which it kind of overpowers a lot of the aisle, right? Even though apples are healthy, bananas are healthy, there's an abundance of them that go into each pouch. And therefore, there's still an overconsumption of sugars, even naturally occurring ones. So just be really careful about that you're giving more diversity than, just pureed fruits or vegetables, especially fruits because of the sugar content. Diet diversity is critical. That's something the USDA tells us. Like, give kids differing foods and a variety of foods from the very beginning. Let them enjoy flavor and let them grow up to continue enjoying that flavor. Allergen introduction, as I've said, is extremely important and scientifically proven, like I said, to reduce the likelihood of food allergies. So get those in there. Consult with your pediatrician, though, or your family doctor on how you want to introduce that. If you have, a history or whatever, or concerned, definitely consult your doctor, but know that peanuts, egg, soy, all of them can be introduced early and can help your kid enjoy food later in life. And textures. Kids should be learning how to chew. Like, they should not only be drinking out of a pouch. Give your kid a pouch if you need the convenience of it and you're on the go. Use it as a snack. Please don't use it as a meal replacement. Kids really need to be learning whether you choose baby-led weaning and, let your kids kind of play and pick up with their own hands, or you're teaching them how to use a spoon or a fork, but like let them develop those oral motor skills that are needed in life, like chewing, swallowing, and accepting textures so that they don't have texture aversions later.
Yeah, I love that. So talk to me about plastics. And this is a tough one for me because Vitamins is in a plastic bottle and I don't love plastics either. But to me, it's one of those things where make the adjustments when you can. And I know as a company, we will be moving away from plastic as soon as practically possible. But with baby food in particular, as you said, for our most vulnerable, tiny little babies, a lot of baby food comes in plastic. Yeah. Why is that? And what should people be considering?
I can't tell you why it is, because we actively, moved in a different direction. But as I was saying before, we're consuming a lot of plastic, and it's unintentional, right? Plastic has been the way it is, right? But that's kind of the evolution of life and science, is like we're always finding out new stuff. Well, now we know that plastics can leach into what we're eating, and especially with baby foods, with the processes that the manufacturers use to get the product into the pouches. It's hot, heated plastic is going to leach into the food. So this is a thing. And also every time you go to like squeeze a pouch, right, you can squeeze in more of those plastics. So what I would say is, buy baby food, that especially because their bodies are still so much in the development stage. I mean, every day they're making huge strides in the development of their like organs and their bodies. Try to buy store-bought baby food in a glass jar if you can. Make baby food, play around with it, or don't even. You know what? It shouldn't even be called baby food. It's food, right? Like whatever you feed yourself, your partner, your husband, your wife, whatever for dinner, feed it to your kid. It didn't touch plastic. I mean, for the most part, right? Probably some of the ingredients did, and some things are unavoidable, but just do what you can and don't store baby food in plastic Tupperwares. You can use glass, you can use jars that you save from tomato sauce or whatever, which is also sustainable, which is something we advocate for as well. But yeah, I mean, buy food that comes in glass if you can, especially at the baby stage where they're most vulnerable, and store your food in glass, Tupperware or whatever whatever you call it, and cook when you can. I mean, if it's something that you enjoy. Otherwise, there are safe options out there. Global is just one of them.
Yes. No, I love that. It's like, again, do what you can. Nobody's perfect. I mean, I can tell you too, as a founder of a company, there are certain things about the food system that I, as a brand new founder, cannot change. And however, all of these small brands like Globals, Vitaminis, we will change the food system.
Yes.
We are changing it, and we will be big one day. So I love that kind of balanced approach. Do what you can, avoid what you can, move to better options when you can.
And we're always learning, right? We're all just trying to do the best that we can, and you and I are trying to make life a little bit easier by offering options that are clean and healthy and set kids up for a lifetime of better eating.
Absolutely. So any tips for things to be done at home to get baby to eat more different types of food if you're not doing just that quick and easy baby food jar? I know you mentioned cooking and trying things out. Anything else you mentioned?
I mean, I think getting kids in the kitchen with you is really important. Like when they feel like an active participant in making it, it's like arts and crafts. They make something, they think it's the most beautiful thing that ever existed. Like they make food, and by make it, it's like whatever you call that. Let them sprinkle something in. Let them, get a little like toddler knife set and cutting board set, and like let them really participate. And I also, one thing I always say, so that's one thing, is just letting them participate, feel like they're a part of it and enjoying the fruits of their labor. But the other thing is too, like when I'm just cooking and not including them, or they're, in an activity or whatever, it's like smell the food. And I have had to teach my kids what they didn't understand, of course, because they're little, is that all of it is connected, right? So if you like the smell of it, you're more than likely going to enjoy the taste. And for whatever reason, with my kids, that totally resonated. Like, it smells amazing. I bet that's going to taste so good, because they like the smell. And so I said, if you don't want to, and my son had some aversions because I told you, because the way I fed him, he was afraid to, chew it and swallow it and like whatever, that kind of scared him. But I said, well, why don't you just put your tongue on it? Just put your tongue on it, because that's where you're going to taste it anyway. You don't have to chew it. You don't have to swallow it. And that was a way to ease him into being more willing to try things, because he was the picky one. He was the resistant one. And that's worked really, really well. He likes the flavor. Then he is willing to take that bite. So, I would say those are some tips that have worked for my family anecdotally, but they've worked really well.
No, that's great. Two things come to mind. One is like my morning coffee. I feel like smelling it is like half of the experience.
Oh my God, I still keep mine here because it smells good all the time.
Yes, I love that. But the other thing I was thinking that's come up in some of our other topics on the summit is just mindful eating. And when I hear you describing that, that's what it reminds me of, is like being in the moment, enjoying the texture, the smell, the taste. Because when you're living in that moment, as opposed to watching a TV, like you said, or being distracted, is you're going to listen to signals from your body about when you're full, what you're craving, what you want more of, less of. So I think that like really all makes a lot of sense.
There's nothing I like more than sitting on the couch with my husband watching a movie while we eat. But that is not, and it's not something we do often, but before kids, we did it a lot more often, but it's not a behavior I want them to mimic, because of that very reason. It's not mindful eating, and you just tend to overeat, and it's and just keep going because you're entertaining yourself and enjoying.
Yeah,
but totally. Not the right example. So always set the example, like if as much as you can, right?
Right. And back to the other thing about moderation is like even just knowing that it's a special occasion, it's a treat, then you can do it, and that's not the way to do it every day, right? Same with like all the different foods. It's like I can eat this brownie, And I realize it's not a meal, and that's okay. I'm still going to enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. And on Saturdays or Friday, whatever, like on a special night, like they can have ice cream while we watch a movie. They ate dinner with us. We sat down the way we wanted to, like as a family, and we got to talk and catch up on the day and eat. But then, they want ice cream and we're watching a movie. Okay, it's Saturday, fine. Like, like we're not intended to be perfect, and we don't want them to think they have to be either. That could lead to a whole other
absolutely
can of worms is striving for that. And that's not feasible. That is not practical. So
totally. And we can't be too hard on ourselves as parents. So that makes a lot of sense. Allergens. So introducing allergens. And I think you mentioned at the beginning, 100 foods. I've never even heard of that. So that I have a 3.5-year-old. So that must be like the new thing that I didn't hear about that when I was dealing with her in the baby phase. But what should parents be thinking? And maybe this goes along with like how to even get them started with food. What do parents think about when they're starting that process?
The allergen introduction?
Allergens, new foods. Is it connected?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, like a long time ago, we didn't look at food as allergens or not allergens. You just gave your kids, the food, right? And food allergies are a new thing. And it really came after the American Academy of Pediatrics came out and said, stop eating peanuts. We didn't have an issue really before that. And they have since gone back and revoked that statement and now say feed allergenic foods early and often. So I would just say that as you're starting this introduction, if you have any scientific, medical, like any sort of questions of that nature, talk to your doctor, right? I will say I was very scared, even with my first kid, when I wouldn't give him flavor and texture and spice, but I was totally cool giving him allergens. I don't know why, but I think because it's such a serious thing that I couldn't stand the idea of having a kid that could get seriously hurt or worse, by allergies or So I had no problem with that, but I did make a very decisive decision, I suppose, to make sure I gave him the allergens during the week. And I could easily go to my doctor if I had to, because I just did it. You don't know how they're going to react. So I would just say, just be prepared for that. And there is medically, like if your child has eczema or some of those skin issues, that they are more likely to have food allergies. So if you have a child with eczema or anything like that, you might want to be extra cautious and talk to your doctor. But, it's up to you and your doctor. If you want to introduce all the allergens at one time in one meal, like I did with my second, go ahead. Some pediatricians will say introduce one at a time so that if there is an allergic reaction, what they were allergic to. It's really, again, you're the parent. You get to do what you want. But there's no right or wrong way. I would say the only thing that is wrong is not doing it unless your kid is born with an allergy and that, right?
Yeah.
But otherwise, making sure that they're exposed early is a very important tool to helping, mitigate that likelihood of them getting it later. Later could be a year or could be 10. We don't know.
That's so interesting. And I think a lot of us, at least for me, I didn't really view allergens as something actionable that you could do something about. I thought it was just something that you either had or you didn't. So that's new. I think that's kind of a new and a more emerging insight that people are starting to understand more.
Yep. And yeah, exactly. And, once you realize that kids all over the world that don't have the same access to these kind of, like I said, sort of sterilized pouches, you see the data on that and that they don't have food allergies because their parents just feed them what they're eating, which is chock full of coconut or soy or egg or peanut or whatever. It's pretty fascinating, 10 times less likely outside of the US, to not 10 times less likely to have food allergies. I mean, that's major data. That is something we need to be listening to. And now it's not just the USDA. It's not just the American Academy of Pediatrics. It's also the National Institute of Health. It's also the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. I mean, it is out there. It is spread far and wide. There have been now many, many studies over many, many years that prove this. And so I just think it's quite important, and we should do what we can, if we can, to prevent these kinds of things.
Yeah, no, I love that. Okay. And then I kind of touched on this, but I don't think I thought it was related, but I think it's separate. Getting your kids started on solids and eating foods if they're breastfeeding or formula. What does that transition look like?
That looks like, I mean, how you want it to look. I mean, like you should still be doing breastfeeding and formula feeding or whatever your choice is through the first year of life. And anything that you give them in terms of food after that is like, is kind of a bonus, because they can get the nutrition that they need from formula and breast milk. However, that's why I think at the beginning it's more fun, right? Because you know that like you're not freaking out that they're not eating enough or they're not, they don't like that food. Like, they're getting the nutrition from the breast milk or formula. So it's actually less pressure, at that earlier stage. So like play around with it. And again, introduce allergens the way that you want, right? Listen to your doctor, do it one at a time, give them pad thai with everything in it. Do you, but definitely play around. Like, don't be afraid of the spice. And I'm not saying spicy. Like we have a baby spices bean bowl, it's called, which is kind of like a chili. It has cayenne in it, which are like cayenne for a baby. No, it's such a small amount. But again, their tongue is now familiar with that flavor. So it's not about making it spicy. It's about exposing them to spice so that when they taste it again, it's okay and more accepting, or more acceptable to them. So don't be afraid. Like if you love garlic powder, put it on their potato, like do what you want, but don't be afraid of it, because there's actually nothing indicating that we can't give them the same food that we eat. Obviously, you don't want them to have added sodium or added sugar, right? That's just, I think we all kind of understand that. So if you give them the food that you're eating and it's, like from a takeout restaurant or whatever, be wary, like, be careful of the sodium contents and stuff like that. But in general, like kids can eat what you eat, and that's how babies ate forever and ever, like historically and generationally. And, we never, had store-bought options too.
Yeah.
So you can.
No, that's a good point. I think people hear spice and they're like, "Oh, painful, spicy." It's like, no, that could just be flavors.
Yeah, it's really just use the word flavor then. Like it's just flavor, and they're like, go in your spice cabinet and pull out the cumin, pull out the chili spice. Like do it. Like it's actually enjoyable for your child. And I feel guilty that I kind of didn't give my first child that option, that I didn't let him enjoy food the way I do. And I'm paying for it and watching that he won't try a lot of really delicious things. And we're getting better. We're definitely getting better. But I feel there's a sense of guilt, that I kind of caused this,
Well, but now you're starting a company to help. So it's like the karma will come around.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping. And the people that have tried the food, the babies, like they love it. It tastes great. They don't even have anything to compare it to at 6 months. Really.
Yes. My daughter tried your foods when you first launched and she loved them too. I remember the chili bowl she really loved.
Thank you.
Yes. So thank you so much. And just to wrap up, where can people learn more about Global, more about the insights you're talking about?
Thank you. Well, our website, global, GLOBOWL.com. You can follow us on social. We do a lot on social and our email list, but we're The Global on social. And then you can check out our store locator on the site or purchase us on global.com or Amazon or Thrive Market.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.